Okay, so last time we talked about prepping the actual nail plate, and today I wanted to talk about how we're going to actually apply our product in order to get it to be structurally sound as well as have a long-lasting grip on the natural nail plate. A lot of people, when they're having issues with lifting, they immediately start adding in different bonders and primers, okay? Bonders and primers, in my opinion and my experience, are some of the most overused products in our industry. People end up using 3 or maybe even more dehydrators, pH balancers, bonders, and all kinds of things before they even get to the actual product application. Now, this depends on the system that you're using, and I actually believe that most of this incorporation of bonders, primers, dehydrators, etc. came from when a lot of people were doing liquid and powder acrylics. But as we moved into gel products, again, a lot of people are reaching for these things before they're even considering their nail prep. So we went over nail prep and best practices in my last video. I did want to point out that bonders, primers, dehydrators, all of that does play a key role. But these are something I recommend you reach for last. I recommend you actually try getting good product application and good product adhesion before you start adding these into your service, because most products these days, especially base coats, already have all of the adhesion ingredients in them, and these are just going to be supplementary to help with those clients that need extra assistance, okay? So you've got things like Air Bond, for example, which I've covered in separate videos specifically about Light Elegance. This is a product that uses moisture to actually create the sticky bond between the nail plate and the product. So this is going to be great for very humid environments, for people with those sweaty nail beds. This is going to be a good option for that. Then you're going to have more traditional, just liquid air drying bonders that are going to utilize HEMA, which has been dissolved into usually an ethyl acetate mixture. So these you just apply, they air dry, and they make the nail really, really sticky, almost like double-sided tape. Important to mention that a lot of bonders do contain HEMA, so if you have a HEMA sensitivity, you're gonna wanna be more cognizant of ingredients. SureBond is more of a dehydrator. It's going to help strip oils and moisture out of the nail plate, so you can use this in conjunction with others. And then also there's unique products like TAC, which are going to be a sort of non-acid based primer mixed with a UV curing monomer element to it that makes, again, the nail plate really, really sticky. But where these guys air dry and are using monomers like HEMA, TAC is going to actually cure because it has photoinitiators in it. And TAC also uses bis HEMA, which is going to be an oligomer-based version of HEMA and is much less likely to cause allergies than just a straight HEMA ethyl acetate formula. So use bonders very sparingly as you're moving forward, and always try just the system the way it was intended before adding on a lot of other accessory products. I'm going to be using our own base builder gel, which is a hypoallergenic product that we make here in the United States. And this is one of those products where you shouldn't need any additional bonders, primers, or anything. The application steps are important because we want to make sure we get a good grip with the nail plate. So I'm going to show you exactly how to apply a similar type base gel like this one, or if you want to try attain adhesion, you can opt to get something like this that's going to be hypoallergenic in nature. All right, so the first step is starting with that nice, clean, dry, etched nail plate. Really important to tell clients not to touch themselves after you've cleansed their nail plate so that we keep this surface clean and free of bacteria. The first layer of gel is the most important, and you're gonna really wanna spend your time scrubbing this into the nail plate. So I'm just gonna put a little bit of product onto the nail, just enough to coat it so I don't have any drips or anything on my brush. And then I'm going to really fan my brush out and wiggle and kind of scrub this base layer into the textured nail plate surface. When we etched the nail plate, we created this texture, and by kind of scrubbing this gel into the nail plate, what we're doing is we're kind of getting the gel to go in between that texture and really soak into the top layer of the nail plate. This is going to give this product the ultimate grip it needs, And this is usually something I see a lot of people just apply their base coat like nail polish. They just kind of put it on, cure, and move forward. But spending time on this very, very first layer, making sure that it's very carefully applied and really scrubbed in, is going to make a world of difference. If you're dealing with super short nail plates, you can also turn your brush angle around. So I'm going to come at it from this angle. I'm going to basically scrub, scrub, scrub. You'll see that I also get a little bit of product right in front of my brush. And what I can do is pull the skin down with my other thumb. Just let that gel come right up over the free edge of the nail, and it's going to basically cap that free edge without getting it all over the skin. Okay? Once you do that, then you can come back and just smooth out the top surface. At this point, the gel should actually have some texture to it. It shouldn't be perfectly smooth. And I actually like to cure this layer. Once we've done the capping and we've really scrubbed it into the nail plate, I like to have my clients cure this layer, and then I go back and I add the structure afterwards. All right, so this is also an area that we need to discuss, which is gel shrinking on the nail plate. Because gel is a liquid and we're taking it to a solid, there is going to be an element of shrinking that happens. And I like to always play around with products a little bit to see how much each formula shrinks. So you can see I just did this very, very thin, kind of rough textured layer, base layer. And what I do is I kind of twist and turn the finger in the light so that I can see that there's a reflection where gel is covering all the way from sidewall to sidewall. I have good coverage up around the cuticle area. And most importantly, I have what we like to call a seal, a capped edge on the free edge. So I can see that reflection all the way on the very, very, very tip of the free edge of the nail. So this lets me know that that layer that I did was sufficient, so that there was enough product on the nail. I capped well enough that even though the gel shrunk a little bit, it kind of shrunk and saran wrapped itself around the free edge, which is going to ultimately just help prevent the natural nail from getting exposed as this product gets worn. Now, I'll talk about at the very end how we can bevel the free edge after we do our color application, but this consideration is very important. Just knowing that you've got this base layer, which is going to be that part that creates adhesion, we want to make sure this base layer is covering the entire nail plate as much as possible without touching the skin. Now, on my secondary layer is when I'm going to consider structure. If I turn Herman's finger around, you can see that he has very, very flat nail plates, okay? He almost has that sort of staple nail shape where it's very flat on the top and then kind of bends down on the corners. And if I turn his hand around this way, you can see from the side angle that it's just a very, very flat surface, okay? So these kinds of flat surfaces are going to be more prone to having stress areas, lifting, and popping, especially things like pocket lifting. The reason being is when we have a flat surface with no real reinforced structure on top, any type of pressure is going to create buckling in certain areas. We need to consider that upper architecture so that we don't get any buckling in those flat stress areas. We want to actually create an upper arch to help reinforce the strength of the nail plate so that it doesn't do that or bend or flex. Same thing goes with twisting and wiggling. We don't want the nail plate to do this either, especially on the corners. That's going to attribute to lifting, popping, especially free edge lifting. Pocket lifting is usually where you get buckling in that stress area. And, again, we're going to talk about beveling the edge, but it can also be something where as surfaces come into contact with the product, if the natural nail plate is exposed underneath, what's going to end up happening is almost like this sticker. It's just going to keep rubbing, and pretty soon we're going to end up with a flimsy natural nail that has started to separate underneath the nail plate. That is going to continue to separate as water and debris gets in there, and pretty soon you're going to have gel on top just like this and a flimsy nail plate underneath. So I'm going to show you guys how we prevent that. All right, so the strongest architectural shape is the dome. That's why we talk about C curves underneath the nail plate, but we also talk about the upper arch, which is on top of the actual nail plate itself. With natural nails, we don't really deal with C curves because we're not able to manipulate the natural curvature underneath the nail plate. We only really do that when we're talking about artificial extensions. So with product application, we're going to want to actually create a more domed surface on the top of this nail to reinforce the sidewalls, prevent any buckling or any twisting or popping. And basically what we're doing is trying to prevent flexibility of the natural nail. So I'm going to apply a wet layer of product. The wet layer is very important because it's going to create a guideline for my next layer, and it's also going to allow for self-leveling. So again, be very careful about not touching the skin. But on this coat, I don't really have to scrub it in anymore because I already did that on my adhesion layer, on my grippy layer. Okay, so I'm just going to have a nice thin wet layer of product on the nail plate. Then I'm going to go back with my brush. I'm going to get a dollop this time, like so. And I'm just going to deposit this about 2/3 of the way up the nail plate. I'm not going to press too hard. I just want to kind of deposit product. And then very, very gently, you can guide it from side to side just to get it to completely cover the nail plate. I don't need to go all the way down in the sidewalls. And I want to basically try and concentrate it more in this center zone of the nail plate, as well as back here in this center arch area. All right, so Herman now has an upper arch on his nail plate. You can see we went from super flat to now this more curved shape. So this concentration of product right in here is going to basically eliminate that buckling that we were looking at with a super flat surface. When we look at it this way, we can also see that we're starting to fill in that gap where there wasn't enough material or structure to actually keep this structurally sound. So by creating more of a rounded surface instead of a flat surface or a staple type of surface, this is going to actually reinforce the nail plate. If you're worried about, you don't know where to put the actual concentration of product, a quick little test you can do is pressing on the end of people's nails. Depending on the length of the nail bed and the length of the nail plate, when you push on someone's nail plate like this, you'll be able to see their nail bed turn white in the area where they need that concentration of product. On some people, it's going to be all the way down here. Some people, it's going to be up by the cuticle area more. Some people, it'll be almost right dead in the center. Now, Herman doesn't really like having shiny or colored nails, so I'm just going to finish this with some matte top coat. You could absolutely apply your color layers and then apply your top coat. But one of the other things that people often misunderstand is they think that you have to have thickness here on the free edge or thickness around the sidewalls and the cuticle area to get this reinforcement, and that's actually not true. Just by having that kind of even dome where there's enough product here on the sides, enough product down the middle zone, that is going to actually reinforce this entire nail plate, and you can keep the free edge and the cuticle area very thin. Okay, so I'm just going to clean off the tacky layer with some gel cleanser. You really want to scrub well, pulling away from the skin, using clean spots on your wipe. That way we're going to remove that inhibition layer and we're going to get a nice matte finish. So it looks very, very natural, but totally reinforced. Now, the last step that I always recommend that a lot of people do not understand because they're taught you don't break the seal of the nail. And everything's about sealing the nail, which actually is really interesting because it's really not about sealing the nail at all. It's about getting good adhesion, good structure, and then actually preventing the natural nail from being exposed to that wear and tear like I showed you with the sticker coming off. So what you're going to want is you're going to want to bevel the free edge of the nail. Now for this, I use a very, very, very skinny nail file. This is actually our Attain metal nail file. It's extremely thin. It's completely soft on the edges, so it doesn't cut even with these short type of nails where you're working right next to the skin. And it also is like more of a fine texture. It's more for kind of refining, natural nail shaping, stuff like that. It's perfect for that. So I'm going to bevel the natural nail. I'm not going to file like this with the nail file perpendicular to the nail plate. I'm actually going to turn my nail file at about a 45 so that I can remove just a teeny bit of that natural nail plate underneath the product. You can do this even after you've applied 2 layers of color and top coat, and it actually helps to refine the shape after you've done all of your product application. It helps to prevent lifting, and it's going to make a very, very refined natural nail edge that's going to feel really nice to the client. Clients usually complain about thick nails because this free edge gets thick and then they lose their dexterity. So by beveling the free edge, it's going to give them that precision with their natural nail free edge, even with product on top. Okay, so I'm just going to take my nail file, like I said, at a 45-degree angle. You can also refine corners at this point too if you forgot to do that early on. If you need to remove corners, you can do that now. Just very, very light. I'm going to go underneath the product and get rid of a little bit of that natural nail. And thinning out the natural nail is going to also prevent it from being able to absorb water, which is going to prevent swelling, dehydrating, and working itself away from the product on top. Okay? So that's the last step, and then you're going to end up with an extremely clean cut, well applied, precise, and lift-proof type of product application that is ultimately going to last a lot better than just doing things the basic way. So by approaching lifting from this direction, we're going to actually accomplish several things. We're going to create better adhesion between the natural nail plate and our first layers of product, which are truly the foundation of anything that we put on top. We are going to provide dexterity to our client and keep them happy while also removing the chance of lifting from the free edge. We are going to add structure to the upper part of the nail plate, that upper arch, which is going to prevent bending and flexing of the natural nail plate, reinforce it, make it stronger, and that means it's going to be able to take impact more without popping, lifting, cracking, any of that stuff. So this is honestly a very simple but detailed approach that you can implement in any of your product application to truly eliminate 99.9% of lifting. At the end of the day, I wanted to leave you guys with the fact that nail products are very well formulated across the board in order to help with things like adhesion and longevity. However, nail products are not indestructible. And that's also something that's really important to teach clients about, which is there are certain things that honestly nail products are just not able to withstand. And most of that has to do with using their free edge as a tool, using lots of chemicals and things that are going to start to eat away at the actual product itself. And just the sheer amount of wear and tear on someone's free edge is going to ultimately have an impact. So teaching your clients about, for example, maintaining moisture around their skin and their nail plate is going to prevent water from being able to absorb into the nail plate and dehydrate, which is going to create lifting. So things like cuticle oils aren't just for making our skin look pretty, they're also for helping to prevent lifting. Same thing goes for what they do with their nails on a regular basis. By actually not using their free edge as a tool, they're going to prevent that possible situation where that natural nail is going to start to peel itself away from the product on top. So all of these lessons are really important to go over with your clients because we can do our best as nail technicians, but at the end of the day, you want to get the most longevity out of every single service, and your clients also play a key role in that success. Stay tuned as next time we'll talk about how to actually choose the right product for the nails that you're working on. Don't forget to claim your free trial at thenailhub.tv for even more amazing education.